Hi, I'm Jessie and I'm going to show you how I made my raglan style peplum top. Today we're going to be using Fairyland's long distance cake balls. This yarn does not tell me the weight, but I would call it a 3-weight or a lighter 4-weight yarn. I'm using a 4.5 millimeter crochet hook. You'll need scissors, darting needles, and some stitch markers. If you have them, I would recommend using these ones. We're going to be moving our stitch markers a lot, so these are really quick and easy to loop on and off. Alrighty, let's get started. So starting with a slip knot, we are going to start by chaining as many chains as you'd like to make for your neckline. So you want to at least make sure this loop can fit over your head when stretched. And it doesn't matter how many stitches or chains, how many chains you chain. This pattern is really simple and is all based on personal measurement. You can pre-measure your size, but I recommend trying it on still as you go to ensure that your tension is matching up with your measurements. So I now have my neckline. So I chained 86 chains. If you want to reference anything, I'm a size medium and I chained 86 for my neckline. So now we want to connect the ends so that it's in a circle for the top of our sweater shirt peplum top that we're making. When you're connecting your ends, you want to make sure that your chain is not twisted. So to ensure that, I like to hold my crochet hook in the other end of my chain right here between my fingers and my thumb and pull my chain here because I want to see all of the V's on top. So I'm just making sure that that's all lined up. Looks good, no twists. So now I'm going to connect this end to this end. By doing so, I'm going to insert my hook into this top loop of the first stitch we made, or chain we made. I'm going to yarn over and pull through, and I'm going to continue pulling through my loop on my hook. So now we have slip stitched to the end of our chain. So now we're connected. For the next row, we're now going to be crocheting in the round. Again, when we're doing this, we want to make sure that we're not twisting this along the way. We want to make sure that we're keeping it in a perfect loop as we go. So I'm going to chain one and make a single crochet in the same stitch that we slip stitched into. And I'm just going to keep going single crochets along our loop of chains. And as you can see, I'm having the back of our chain face me, whereas this is the front of our chain. There we go. The front of our chain versus the back. So this part is facing me when I'm making my single crochets, and I'm inserting them into this top loop here. And I'm just going to continue this all the way around, making sure that I'm not twisting my chains. Now every once in a while I'm just checking and making sure that nothing's twisting as I'm going. So far we're going good. We only got a little bit left to go. This is probably my least favorite part of the project, but it's fine because you only have to do it once. And then the rest of it is pretty easy, pretty straightforward, I'd say. I feel like a lot of people can make these, and it's a simple beginner pattern. I wouldn't say absolute beginner, but someone who at least knows like the terminology and all that kind of stuff. Alrighty, so coming up to the end here, I'm just gonna finish that last stitch, and now I'm gonna make sure we're not twisting again. I'm gonna do that by stretching my work, making sure that all of my V's, when this is folded in half, oh my goodness, there we go, are facing up. And now I'm just going to slip stitch into that first stitch we made earlier. I'm going to chain one and I'm going to turn my work. So this is your neckline. So now we need to divide these 86 stitches and place stitch markers on where we need to increase in order to make this gradually get larger. So I will show you how to do that in the next 2 rows, but first we need to mark our stitches. Okay, so here is your neckline with your single crochet row all the way around. What I did was I split the 86 stitches into 2, so I know there should be 43 stitches on this side and 43 stitches on this side. I like to make sure that my seam, or where my join for each row, lands in the center of the back of my project. That's just where I prefer to put the seam. You can always just split it this way as well and place stitch markers on either end, but I just prefer that it be on the back of the project. After I split that, from the center of each side, I counted out to 13 stitches evenly. So now I have sections where I can increase, and it's going to start creating little sides for joining sleeves. So now that I have my stitch markers in place, I can remove the center stitch markers because I don't really need to know that anymore. Put those away. So I like to use 2 different colors of stitch markers so I know that which side goes where. And now we can start using our double crochet around the row and increasing where our stitch markers are. So where we joined our work, we chained 1, and now we're going to turn our work, and we're going to start using double crochets. But before we can do that, we need to either chain 2 so that it blends, or we can do, I like to do, which is a standing single crochet. So I'm going to place a single crochet in the stitch closest to my hook, and instead of going on to the next stitch, we need this to look like a double crochet. So I'm going to take my hook, let me make sure this is focused so you guys can see. I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to insert it into the bottom post of our single crochet. So right here, oh my gosh, I crocheted too tight. So right here is where I'm going to insert my hook. I'm going to yarn over, pull up a loop, so I have 2 on my hook, yarn over, pull through 2. And so now that brings our yarn height up. It doesn't make a weird chain 2 stitch where it's going to seem crowded, and I count this as my first stitch. So now I can place a double crochet and it's the same height. I'm just going to keep going, placing 1 double crochet into each stitch until I reach my stitch marker. Okay, so coming up on my stitch marker, I'm going to place 1 double crochet in the stitch before my stitch marker, like normal. I'm going to remove my stitch marker, we're going to set that aside, and we're going to place 2 double crochets into the same stitch. So 1, now into that same stitch, 2, and we're going to take our stitch marker, and instead of placing it into this stitch or this stitch, we're going to place it between the 2 double crochets. And when we increase on our next row, we're going to place that increase between these stitches. So from here, we're just going to keep placing double crochets into each stitch. All right, so we're at a stitch marker again. So we're going to remove that stitch marker. And we're going to place a double crochet into that stitch. And we're going to place another double crochet into the same stitch. And again, we're going to take our stitch marker and we're going to place it between those 2 double crochets. And then we'll complete the row. Oops. That's what happens when you don't pull your yarn out of your ball. So now we're just going to keep placing double crochets into each stitch until we get to our next stitch markers, and we're going to do the same thing on that side. So go ahead and finish this row, and I will meet you back at the end. All right, we have 1 stitch left. I'm going to insert my hook into the first stitch in our row. I'm going to slip stitch, I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to turn my work. So now this is how it should look. A nice collar. You should have increases where all 4 stitch markers are. And now we're going to start our second row. So you can chain 2 to get your yarn tall enough to do another double crochet, but I prefer to do a
one of these. I think it's called a standing single crochet or like stacked single crochet. I'm gonna insert my hook into our first stitch. I'm gonna yarn over, pull up a loop. So I have 2 on my hook. I'm gonna yarn over and pull through. So that's just your normal single crochet. Now this bottom post right here is where we're gonna insert our hook. So we're gonna insert our hook into that bottom loop. I'm gonna yarn over and pull up a loop. It's gonna look something like this. You can have 2 loops on your hook. You'll yarn over and pull through both of those. And that replaces your chain 2, and it can also count as your first double crochet in the row. So it eliminates any bulk or weird gapping over here where your seam would be. So now I'm just going to yarn over, insert my hook into the next stitch, and make a double crochet like normal. I'm just going to continue on until I reach my stitch marker. So just 1 double crochet per stitch. Okay, so we're coming up on our stitch marker. So there are 2 double crochets in 1 stitch in the previous row. So what we need to do is we need to add 1 double crochet to the first stitch from the previous increase, like that. We're going to remove the stitch marker, and instead of placing a double crochet straight into that next stitch, we're going to place 2 double crochet in between these stitches. So I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to insert my hook between the 2 double crochets under that little section. I'm going to yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through 2, pull through 2. So it's going to look something like this. And then we're going to do that again into the same space. So we're going to yarn over, we're going to insert our hook between those stitches, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. So now we have the second stitch from the previous increase. So we're going to yarn over and we're going to insert our next double crochet into that stitch. So now it should look something like this. And now we're going to take our stitch marker and we're going to put it between the increase we made. So we're going to put it between these 2 double crochet, not in any stitch, but in the space between. And then we're just going to continue making double crochets like normal in each of the following stitches until we get to our next stitch marker. And then we're just going to repeat what we just did. Okay, so I'll show you one more time. We're going to place a double crochet in the next stitch, which is the first stitch from the previous increase. We're going to remove our stitch marker, and in the space between, we're going to place 2 double crochets. One, 2, and then we're going to place a double crochet into the second stitch from the previous increase. Just like that. It's going to look something like this. take your stitch marker and place it into the space between the two stitches that you used to create your increase. And you're just going to keep on doing that. So now you can just, from here, keep going. You're going to continue the same type of increases around, and eventually you're going to get something like this. So as you go, it's just going to continue to get larger and flare out a little more on that corner. And this is the shape we're looking for to create our armholes. So I make these with short cap sleeves. So depending on your measurements, you'll keep going until these corners reach your armpits. So right now I have my row of single crochets up here on the neckline. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rows, well, almost 10 rows of double crochet with increases. I'm going to keep going, and once mine is the correct length to reach my armpits on the corners here, I will show you what that looks like. But in the meantime, repeat the last row we just did until you reach that point.
Alrighty, so I left you guys at row 10 the last time we chit-chatted. I'm back. It maybe has been a couple days, but it's fine. I had other things I needed to work on. Anyway, back to this gorgeous raglan style peplum top. We are at row 13, and at this point, this is fitting me very well. These stitch markers are at my armpits, which means now we can create chains to connect this section and start on the body. So now we're going to create that cute little peplum skirt that comes down. So make sure that you are comfortable with how this fits, because we're about to get started on the meat of the project. Okay, so we just finished our last row. For me, that was number 13. I don't know why, but that seems to be a trend in this pattern, is that I use the number 13 a lot. We're gonna slip stitch into our first stitch from the row we just made. Got some hair on there. I'm gonna chain one, and I'm gonna turn my work. So to start this row, we're just going to start our row like normal, either chaining 2 or placing a standing single or stacked single crochet, and I can show you how to do that again. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna, after you've chained 1 and turned your work, insert your hook into the first stitch and place a single crochet. Now we're going to insert our hook into the base post or loop from that single crochet we just made. We're going to insert our hook in there. We're gonna pull up a loop. Excuse my cat. He's running around like a maniac right now. So we have 2 loops on our hook after inserting into that. Oh my God, okay. Let me show you one more time. So we're gonna insert our hook. We're gonna place a single crochet just like we normally would place one. We're going to insert our hook into the bottom post of our single crochet we just made, and we're gonna pull up a loop. Oh shit, I'm out of focus. We're gonna pull up a loop. So we have 2 on our hook, and then we're gonna yarn over and pull through those 2. That way we're eliminating that bulky yarn that we get with a chain 2, but we're still allowing our yarn to reach a height that we can continue on with our double crochets. So now I'm just going to place double crochets like normal until we get to our stitch marker. Okay, so we have been placing double crochets like normal across the row. I've already attached one side, so I'm going to show you how to do that over here on this side. So between your increase markers, you're just doing normal double crochets in each stitch across. So here we're coming up on an increase or one of my stitch markers. So I'm going to place double crochets like normal. I'm going to place a double crochet into the first stitch from the previous row's increase, just like we normally would. But now instead of placing an increase here or moving forward this way, we now need to take this side and somehow connect it to our other side. So what we're going to do is I'm going to chain 15. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So this is a good distance for me. I suggest at this point, when you are starting to do this, after you've chained a certain number of chains, try the item on and make sure that these reach one another and don't feel too tight when you hold them together, because this is the armpit. So you want that to be pretty comfortable. 15 chains is a comfortable amount of chains for me. This will depend on the size you're making and the type of yarn you're using. So whatever is a good distance for you, once you've reached that point, we're now going to take our other side, and we want to make sure that it's facing the same way so that when we fold it, they meet together like this. So with your work facing you, you're now going to take the chain you've chained and we're going to place it in this double crochet from the previous row's increase. So remember, we did the stitch on this side, we did the front stitch. So the front stitch for this side is going to be this one here. So what we'll do is we're going to place a standing single crochet. So we're going to insert our hook, pull up a loop, and we're going to place a single crochet in that stitch. And then we're going to insert our hook into the bottom loop of that single crochet, pull up a loop, so that we look like this. So you're doing the same stitch you would do when you're first starting your row out. And now I'm just going to keep going with double crochets in each stitch across until I reach the end of my row. And I will show you what that looks like here in a second. Okay, so I've just attached, let me zoom you out. So I've just attached both sides. I finished my row. I did my slip stitch. So now it should be looking something like this. So here's the front of our work, or the front of the top. And it's looking good. I have my chains here attaching both sides. So now we're gonna start working on the body of our work. So now it's only going to grow this way. We're not gonna see our sleeves grow. You can add long sleeves to this if you want. I prefer to leave mine how they are or add a border. I will show you how to add a border in this tutorial, but I will not show you how to make the sleeves just because that's not necessarily how I make them. So now we're just going to do a few rows of normal double crochets, we're going to double crochet into the chains we've created around here, and I will show you how to do that. So first, we're just going to start our row like we normally would. And I'm going to place double crochets across the row until I reach my chain. And I'll show you how to start that part of it. So I will meet you at the sleeve. Okay, so I just reached the point of my chain. So I'm going to place a double crochet in this last double crochet that we have in this row. Well, on this section of this row. And now, I mean, it's pretty simple. We're just going to turn our work like this so that our chain is facing the correct direction. So we want to be seeing these top little V's here. Oh, sorry, I'm a little far from the camera. There you go, those V's like you normally would on your chain. And we're just gonna place a double crochet in each one across the row. And I'm gonna count as I go to ensure that I'm placing 15. Because that's how many I chained. So I'll just yarn over and insert my hook into the loop here on your chain and place a double crochet. And I'm just going to keep going on that. So that's 1, that's 2, oops, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Sorry, my cat is doing everything he can to get my attention right now. So that was 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and then, oh my goodness, this last couple stitches I made way too tight. And then our last one, 15. And with that, we're just going to continue. So now I'm just going to place another double crochet into the following double crochet. And I'm just going to keep going across. And I'm going to do the same thing I just did over here on the other side. So once you've done both sides and you're slip stitching your row together, I will meet you there. Okay, so I'm at the end of my row. I'm going to slip stitch. And just so now you guys can see, so you have something to reference, this is what we're looking like. So now, let me zoom you back out. We have these little loops here for your arms, and now we can make the little skirt on it. So again, this is also a good spot to try this on, make sure it's comfortable, make sure it's fitting you the way that you like, or it's matching the measurements that you took, so that you don't have to frog a whole bunch to fix something that you can fix now, because I've done that more than once. So now that we have reached here, we're going to now start placing increases in different areas to create the little wavy skirt effect on this top. And right now I'm going to show you where we're going to place those increases and how to mark them. So first thing you want to do is you want to count how many stitches you have around and divide that by 10, and that will help you kind of determine how many increases you're going to have. Or in other words, you can simply increase after every 10th stitch. So you can count out your 10 and place a stitch marker, and then count another 10 and place a stitch marker to help you identify where you're going to increase, because again, we're going to want to increase in the same spot every single time, just like we did up here. Or if you're like me, you know to just look for those increases and place them when you need them. We're going to create the same type of increases we made when we created our sleeves. But because we have multiple down here, it's going to create more of a fabric like wave to the material. We're going to place our increases. So the easiest way to do this is to place a increase every 10 stitches. I have 147 stitches in my last row I just completed, so I should have about 14 increases. I always start with my first increase in the first stitch of the row. I just think it makes it easier to remember. And yeah, so let's get started. I will show you how I create the first increase, and then you should have it from there. We are just creating the same type of increases we created at the sleeves here. So to start this row, I'm going to start with my oops, hold on. So we just chained one after we connected. Excuse me, I need to turn my work. Make sure you're turning your work. Now that we're in the correct spot here, I'm going to place a single crochet like I normally do at the beginning of each row. I'm going to place my hook in the base of that single crochet and pull up a loop. So I have 2 on my hook, and then I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to pull through 2 to start our row off. And in that same stitch, I'm going to place a double crochet. So this is our first increase. I find creating an increase where your seam is, or where you're connecting each row, helps to kind of hide that if you're choosing to do a chain 2 instead, or however you decide to make the height of your yarn match the stitch. I just think creating a wave there or a ruffle helps with hiding that kind of line that can start to develop as you crochet in the round like this. So now I'm going to place 10 double crochets like normal. And 10. So now, just like how we made the sleeves, I'm going to place 1 double crochet in the next stitch. I'm going to place another double crochet in that same stitch. And now here, if you want, you can place a stitch marker, and we're going to do just like we did previously, in between the 2 double crochets, and then place 10 more double crochets. So that's 10 double crochets from our increase. So we're not counting the increase as a stitch between these increases. Like, we're not counting that as 1. This is 1, the stitch after. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now I'm going to place another double crochet into that same stitch with the first double crochet we made, and I'm going to place a stitch marker between those stitches. So now we have 2 increases in our row. So keep on with this, and I will meet you back at the end of the row, and then I will show you how we're going to create our increases into these stitches. Welcome back. You finished your last row with all your increases placed. As you can see, I have stitch markers in all my increases. I thought maybe I would give it a shot. I normally just look for my increases, but I figure if I do it this way, maybe it'll be faster because then I don't have to count my stitches. So now what you're gonna do is you're going to slip stitch into your row. You're gonna chain one, and we're going to turn our work. Now, because we didn't have the exact number of stitches to create exactly 14 increases with 10 stitches between all of them, we have a funky little gap here where we have an increase, but we also placed an increase in the beginning of the row. That's fine. We're gonna keep doing that with every row. So what I'll do here is, since my increase is on this side, I'm not gonna be increasing at the beginning of this row, but when I turn my work at the next row, then I will be placing an increase there. So, and I can show you what that looks like as well. So what we're gonna do is we are going to do our normal little beginning to our row. We're gonna place double crochets in each stitch until we get to the increase here. So now we're at the increase. So just like when we made our sleeves, we're gonna put a double crochet in the first stitch of the previous row's increase. We're gonna take out our stitch marker and place 2 double crochets in the gap between the previous increase. So I'm gonna place 1, and then I'm going to place 2. And I'm also placing a double crochet in the second stitch of the previous row's increase. So we're gaining stitches, we're not losing anything. And that's exactly what you're gonna do for the rest of the row. And you're taking your stitch marker, if you're using them, and you're placing it between that increase so that you know where you're placing your stitches. And now from here, you can just keep on going with that until you reach a length that you like. That's the best part about this pattern, is that it's super customizable. So once I reach a length that I like, I will meet you guys back and we'll go from there. So as you can see, we're getting roughly. This is exactly what we want. This obviously is not the length that I will be going for. If this is what you're looking for, you can always stop here. But I realized that I did not show you how to join your rows. So really quick. So remember when we started doing our ruffle rows, we did an increase in the first stitch. So as you can see over here, you can see where I've continued that. So I have 1 there, 1 there, and 1 there. So the part where it can get kind of confusing is feeling like every time you start your row, you need to apply an increase, or end your row, you need to apply an increase. So this would be a great spot to keep a stitch marker, honestly, because you want to make sure that you're doing it in the same spot every time. But you're just, so in this case, I'm going to finish my row. And the reason this gets confusing sometimes is because you're constantly turning your work with each new row. So I'm going to, so in this case, with the increase being on this side of our join, when I turn my work, I don't need to worry about increasing, because now I'm going to increase at the end of this row because my increase is on this side of the join. Now, if I was joining and turning my work this way, then I would be applying my increase in the beginning of my row. So just remember that when you're starting a new row, that you're making sure that you either have a stitch marker there to identify that increase, or you're looking for it, because it isn't necessarily there at the beginning of each row. I hope that makes sense. Now, if you are just choosing not to turn your work and you're continuing in the round, then it would be in the same spot every single time, but that's not the case with this pattern specifically that I'm doing. So since I don't have an increase on this side, I'm just going to start this row as I normally would with that single crochet and inserting my hook in the base of that single crochet, yarning over, pulling up 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and I'm just gonna keep going. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I just did that. That was crazy. Let's just set that over there. And there's my increase. So we always place a double crochet in the first stitch of the previous row's increase, and then place 2 between. And then place 1 in the second stitch of the previous row's increase. And then we'll stick our stitch marker back in there. So just continue on like that for a little bit, and then I will show you what to do next. Okay, so now I've reached a point to where it's just below my bust area and the ruffles are ruffling. So now that we've made a decent amount of increases, now you can keep going with your increases if you want the ruffles to be you know, thicker in between, but I'm now going to stop making my increases and I'm just going to do a few rows of double crochets around without increasing. So I'm going to remove my stitch markers now, and I'm going to start that. I'm just going to start placing one double crochet per stitch all the way around, no increases. Now this is going to help it grow in length, but it's not going to bulk it up too much because as you start to increase stitches, obviously you're adding stitches, so it's creating a little more bulk to the pattern. But now that we have that, when we place our double crochets around like normal, it'll keep this really beautiful wave, but it's gonna just make it longer. And I will hold this up to my body so that you guys can kind of see what that looks like, what it looks like currently on my body. So this is where it's currently at. My sleeves look exactly how I'd like them to. As you can see, it's just past my bust area. So we're just gonna now place one double crochet all the way around with no increases until it's the length that we want it to be. Once mine is at that length, I will show you what that looks like so you have an idea of what it should look like. I could also just leave it like this and wear it as a cute little cropped peplum, but that's not really what I'm going for with this one. So I will come back with it at the length that I want it. Okay, so this is the top completed. I did 12 rows of increases for my ruffles and 5 regular rows of just placing double crochets in each stitch all the way around to give it some more length. Adding length after your ruffles is really important to help kind of like weigh it down in a way, or to help it lay flat. If I were to continue just with increases, it would just get rufflier and rufflier, kind of like this top I made a couple summers ago. I made this and I just kept on adding increased rows and it just created so much ruffle, which is totally fine if that's what you're looking to do. This one's really fun to put over like a dress, or again, just some high-waisted pants, or leggings. I love this one. Or you can add very few increases and come out with something more like this, where it's a little more relaxed, not as ruffly, and a little more flowy. On this one, I added a little keyhole on the back. This is another one that I made with the peplum edge, or excuse me, peplum, with the scalloped edge. If you follow me on Instagram or TikTok, you've probably seen this one. This is what really sparked me to want to make a tutorial for these tops that I make. Since I've already made so many, I figured I would show you guys how I do it. So with this one, we did this really cute little scalloped edge around the sleeves and the collar, and I also did some on the bottom of the last row. I was going to show you how to add a scalloped edge to this project in this tutorial, but I changed my mind just because this top is already so busy with the striping. I thought that it would just be a little too much to add the scalloped edge, but I can definitely make a tutorial for that in the future. Especially since this tutorial is already almost an hour long, if not over an hour. But this is the finished product. This is what your work should look like, or something similar to this or the other tops that I've shown you. So yeah, I hope you guys had fun. I hope this tutorial came across clear and that you were able to make something that looks like this. Again, this is my first tutorial, so I will be taking anything into consideration that you leave in the comments to better my explaining during these things or filming. If things were hard to see, I really want to know that, because I know when I started out, it was really difficult with those beginner patterns to see everything that was happening. I do plan to do more beginner-ish patterns. After finishing this, I did find that it's more of like an intermediate pattern or intermediate beginner. So look out for some more tutorials on how to do the basics. I feel like with how much the crochet community has grown, a lot of those videos have kind of been buried away with all of these really cool new tutorials on how to make items, whether it's plushies or stuff like this. So I kind of want to resurface a few things. I have some friends I know who are super interested in learning and don't feel like they can learn, but don't always have the time to come hang out. So why not make some tutorials on how to get started and keep going and learn new stitches along the way. So I hope to be posting some more content like that. And I really hope that you guys like this tutorial. Leave a comment below, maybe subscribe if you want to see what's going to come next out of this. I had a lot of fun filming this, and yeah, I'll see you later.